I'm Ben Lands with APC Media.
I'm Seth Johnson. We're at DTECH 2026. Please join us as we speak to industry leaders,
gaining insights from experts in the utility industry.
Join us to hear all about what people are doing to achieve affordable, reliable, and a resilient grid.
Good afternoon. Welcome to DistribuTech in San Diego. It's day 2. My name is John Bucciarelli. I'm the president of SD Myers, and I'm doing some APC Media interviews this week. With me today is my friend Brad Bowness from Systems with Intelligence. Brad, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, great to be here today.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your role in the organization.
Yep. So Brad Bowness, been with SWI now for 2 years. I'm the Chief Information Officer. That role, when I was a Chief Information Officer at a utility, was very different. I had accountability for IT, OT, cybersecurity, very much an internal role. My role within SWI is to help our customers, right? To be out there in the market, interact with customers, understand their challenges, and bring those insights back to our team to help solve business challenges that our customers are facing today.
So you mentioned your customers. What areas do you focus on in the customer market?
Yeah. So our bread and butter as a business has been around substation monitoring. So being able to deploy technology that's touchless. So it's very easy to deploy. It's not physically connected to the assets, but we're taking advantage of thermal and visual sensors to continuously monitor assets, looking for issues and problems, whether those are hotspots, whether those are thermal trends, whether those are visual defects, bird's nest corrosion, level detection, gauge reading, and the such, everything that we can do around visual and thermal monitoring in order to help the utility understand what's happening in their substations to make sure those substations are performing at their optimal levels.
That's great. What major trends are you seeing in the industry right now?
We're really seeing a large adoption of new technology from a pilot perspective. I think a lot of utilities are out there trying things. So what's really nice to see is that they are trying things. Historically, utilities have been able to leverage the fact that a lot of these assets were built in the, 50s, 60s, and 70s, had a good 50-year life, were able to run things at a certain level, maintain their reliability standards. But as those assets are aging, as the grid demands are growing, as customer expectations are increasing, we're really seeing that there being a need for additional monitoring on these, aging assets. And we really are seeing our customers as well as others in the industry adopting technologies. I wouldn't say it's wholesale. I wouldn't say that customers are looking across their entire fleet. They're focusing pilots on troubled assets, key substations, key customer loads, but they really are trying different things in order to bring a highly reliable product to their customers at an affordable cost.
Yeah. We see a lot of the same things with our business, aging infrastructure and customers addressing that. Why do you think some of that is starting to emerge now and people are focusing on it?
Yeah, I think part of it is just generally what's going on in the world is there's so much more visibility. You think about your home and you think about, what's life like at home with, Google Assistants and smart dishwashers and, all the information and insights that come about your home and your car and an EV if you have it, your commute, how long is it going to take you to get somewhere, where are your kids, where's my fine friends, doing all of these things. Everybody's expectations about visibility has increased so much. Right? Then you take that into the industrial world, into the utility world, and that expectation of being able to see what's going on, take advantage of the additional insights that are coming back, making better decisions and optimizing, how you're running your business is really prevalent in the industry.
That's great. What specifically is Systems with Intelligence doing to address these needs?
So Systems with Intelligence, sort of bread and butter over the last 15 years, has been, using our substation expertise around, monitoring assets thermally. So, historically utilities would do, an annual or semi-annual thermal inspection. They would walk the yard. They would have their thermographic results. They would look for hot spots. They would look for loose connections and such, and then they'd move on to the next site. We really found that there was an opportunity to take advantage of lower cost digital sensors deployed on a continuous basis to monitor those assets while loads are present in different seasons, in different operating conditions. So being able to do a legacy practice of manual inspection and moving to continuous inspection, has been a really good market for us to be in for the last 15 years. And we typically had used our visual system to then investigate what might be going on. So you would get a thermal alarm and you'd use the visual system to look to see, is there an issue with the equipment? Is there an external object? Is there animal intrusion, what have you? So we would use the visual system secondary. What we're now starting to do with computer vision and AI is we're now starting with the visual side and saying, let's do the routine visual inspections, let's read gauges, let's look at levels, let's look for cracks and corrosion, and identify defects proactively on the visual side, similar to how we've been doing it on the thermal side for 15 years.
I think that's one of the areas that people lose sight of, is how important doing those visual inspections are every day, because the conditions aren't the same every day. So what are some initiatives or projects you guys are working on that you think will have the greatest impact in this area?
Yeah, so when I think about our roadmap, we're continuing to always look to improve the user experience, the integration we can do with enterprise business processes. So how do we make it easier for our customers to pull our content into a historian? How do they use our user interface if they want to use us as the primary, end user application? And how do we make that very easy for the user to take action? So we're always investing in the software side of our system. But we're also, we're a bread and butter, sensor and hardware company with, expertise in the substation. Now, a substation is a harsh environment. You have, the typical harsh things that you think about of weather and wind. But when you think about the substation, you have EMI, you have EMF, you have, stray voltage, you have, all the considerations that have to be taken into consideration in that substation. But you also have all the expectations of the utility that any equipment that goes into a substation is hardened to that substation grade. So meeting 61850 standards, IP67 rating standards, being able to be deployed in a control room similar to an RTU, the digital video server, our bread and butter is living and breathing in that space. So we're always looking to improve that side of things. We've deployed AI technology at the edge with our latest digital video server. We've just announced this week a new lower form factor visual or thermal sensor. So for hard to reach spaces, whether that's in cabinets, whether that's looking at switchgear, we're always looking at saying, hey, how can we take advantage of our expertise and bring, tweaks to our product or new products to the market to hit these use cases that our utility customers are looking for.
Yeah, that's good. What are these challenges that utilities or operators at these utilities are facing?
Yeah, I think the big challenge that we hear across the board is, there's the tsunami of data, there's all these sensors, you're another sensor, what are we going to do with it? How is it going to add value? How is my end user going to adopt it? So what we really like to focus in on that challenge is, first and foremost, we have a very easy to deploy, very easy to use solution. So, from a pilot or an initial rollout, the fact that, you can deploy our IM500 unit, it's an IoT device, you can deploy it, the solar unit in 20 minutes, the fixed mounted magnetic mount tripod unit in about an hour, and you can be live getting real continuous monitoring that fast, right? You're not having to trench, you're not having to integrate into back office networks and the such. You can leverage that cellular communication, leverage that technology right out of the box and be up and running. So, that ease of deployment is one piece. But then the second piece is we recognize, we're a piece of the puzzle. And we understand the market. We understand the ecosystem. We understand the different historian products that are out there, the different SCADA systems that are out there. We understand utility business processes. And we always try to fit within our lane, but work within that bigger ecosystem to feed into those, enterprise systems where we add value, but we don't try to do everything ourselves. So, we sort of take two approaches on that to try to make that ease of adoption easier for the end customer.
Yeah, that's great. Where do you see the biggest impacts in the next 5 years with this technology?
With this technology, thank you for and narrowing the spectrum, because was at the keynote this morning on all of what's happening in the AI space and general intelligence and the such. It's going to be a wow period of time the next 5 to 10 years.
Time to be in this space.
Yeah, and I think for us, as we're living in that world, this acceleration of the ability to extract insights from content is really exciting for us. So having the number of assets deployed in substations across the world at over 150 utility customers, we have the systems out there to gather the content. But now with this acceleration of the ability to consume that content and produce it into insights, and with the acceleration of AI and artificial general intelligence, if that comes, the world's our oyster as to how we can feed that to the utilities so that they can correlate it with their other data sources to improve their operations. So we're really excited about being part of this ecosystem. We think we'll be able to take advantage of a number of those technology advancements right within our core products. But we also see a big part of our play is just about how do we integrate into that ecosystem.
I think some of the big challenges are the workforce, the knowledgeable workforce that's exiting, and the pace of getting people knowledgeable just can't happen fast enough. So the data has to pick that up. So what advice would you give to your peers in the industry on how to handle these challenges coming in the future?
Yeah, and I spent 20 years within a large utility. I had various leadership roles, and the piece of advice that I would give in this whole space of sensing is get started. Get started, deploy different technologies, deploy, different pilots at stations, pick a substation to do a substation of the future, try things out and push yourself to change how you're doing your business, because you have an aging workforce, you have assets that are further aging. There's going to be more needs for insight about these assets that are in the field. Customers' expectations are continuing to grow. So getting started, for those that haven't started, is really important. And for those that have started, my advice is dedicate some people that have maybe some runway left in their careers, maybe people that are, have enough experience, maybe they're 10 or 15 years into their career, but they still got 20, 30 years left. And to say, hey, we want you to be our champion of how we transition through this evolution and this revolution or whatever's happening in this world around AI and data and insights and sensors, and help champion it. So, get a team assigned to this that can carry it forward. Don't give this to somebody who's, maybe only got a few years left. Give this to someone who could champion it for the next, 10 or 15 years.
Last question, as you think about the future, what excites you about the future of this in this industry?
What excites me about this industry, and I never thought I would get into this industry. It wasn't where I thought I'd start my career, but, this industry is so important. And I think a lot of people in the past have talked about it sort of being, this secret or behind the curtain industry that sort of things work. But what excites me about this industry is, electricity is cool again. Electricity is being talked about. It's being seen as such a key enabler of the world's, next steps of how we adopt technology, how we use, the renewable energy sources, how we produce smart power, how we get power to the loads where it's required, how do we fuel, the world's economy, how do we fuel the world's, improvement from a societal perspective, whether it's food or water or waste management or, general power needs and heat and all the things that come out of having a really strong electricity ecosystem. And electricity is seen as this, amazing, capability that can bring that source power where it's needed to enable the world.
Great. Brad, thank you for the interview. Thank you for what you're doing with Systems with Intelligence. And I'm John Bucciarelli here at DistribuTech. Thanks for watching.